The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Oh, there we are. I'm sorry about that. Hello and welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ and Chip is somewhere lost in emotion. He's lost in the traffic because he was at a retirement board meeting and it ran late because, again, Chip was doing his job on holding the city accountable for the lies and bull that they like to spew at everybody and their brother. So we always make it interesting, if nothing else, here in Fall River. So last night we had a City Clowncil meeting. And what a Clowncil meeting it was. I'm going to tell you right now, both sides have valid arguments. And I'm not talking about both sides between Joe Macy, who's a clown attorney, or the City Council, who are just a bunch of clowncils. And I'm not saying clown attorney to be disrespectful, but to recommend or to even bring up, not recommend, but to even bring up that the City Council and the mayor may have to go to court over this issue makes for a farce. The bottom line is this: the City Council has control over the checkbook. Now, granted, this wasn't a reconsideration. They decided they didn't want to go forward. They should have done this the first time out, but again, they have no backbone. None. And that's the problem with you, City Council. You have no backbone. You don't have a set amongst the 9 of you. You were told that Streetscapes was a farce when it first came out. And back then you should have said, you know what? You're right. We should just look at doing streets, period. You failed to recognize, for whatever reason it may be, or you failed to recognize because you didn't want to recognize the fact that these streetscapes projects are benefiting political hacks, political whores. They're benefiting areas where significant campaign contributions were made. And those property owners are going to get benefits. And you just look at the citizens' input yesterday. Okay? Bill Kenny, who's over there trying to protect his job, voting everything the mayor wants, and if he can't vote what the mayor wants, he abstains from the vote for questionable ethical dilemmas. Because if he votes against the mayor, he may lose his job. Then you have Tom Corey, who's on boards and everything else under the city. And guess what? He, in turn, goes up there saying, I put some money into my building and we need to start investing in business, da-da-da-da-da. Well, you know what? The bottom line is this. Streetscapes is a joke. And when we look at Pleasant Street, which was a streetscapes project many years ago, it failed miserably. Absolutely 100% failed miserably. And when you already have a failure, why are you going to do it again? Why? Because Fall River is stupid. They don't learn from their mistakes. They can't learn from their mistakes. They have no way of getting their head around it because it's so far up their rectum, they can't see the light of day. And the people who are on the radio and all over the city spouting that the mayor's doing a wonderful job, the mayor's doing a wonderful job, prove to the people of Fall River with hard, factual evidence that he's doing a wonderful job. And I'll believe it. And I'll get off his back. But I can't find any. The mayor came out with a budget. And it's a joke. Sorry for getting off camera real quick because I should have had this initially. But again, best laid plans of mice and men. Here's the city budget. Look at that. It's a roadmap to nowhere. I've looked it over. I've done a lot of research into it. And I'll tell you now, it scares me. For those of you who think that we here at Spindle City Straight Talk don't do our research, this is just a file in some of the initial review of the budget. Highlighted yellow areas, questionable areas. We've had it reviewed by accountants, bookkeepers, previous city administrators. Look at that, another yellow area. The projections this mayor is making in revenue is far from reality. We're showing deficits all over the place when it comes to the reality of the matter. And you know, we've said it on this show before, we'll say it again. We look at what we're doing. We take great respect and great time to be sure that we follow through on what our people are talking about. We get phone calls daily from city residents who want to know what is going on because they don't understand it. You know, sometimes it's kind of hard for me to understand it. That's the sad part about it. But it is what it is. Missed you all on Monday, though, I'll tell you that right now. I wish my co-host would get here, because I'm sure he has a lot to say. So there was a lot of interesting stuff that went on over the weekend. Obviously, we had the Memorial Day celebrations, and people were trying to get very much in the mood for it. But I'll tell you right now, I really want to slap people across the face when they say Happy Memorial Day. It's not a happy day. It is a day of somber resemblance. It's a somber time. It's time to look back. It's to look at what's going on. It's looking at what has happened. But, I had a look at Mark Dion's columns this week on Sunday. I love the way he opened it. The city budget is like a big fuzzy poodle. Really? A big fuzzy poodle? Well, I guess it was. You have to laugh at some of it, because I'll tell you now, it's a big joke when it comes to this budget. And it looks like maybe I'm going to turn the transporter on, and lo and behold.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't see myself on the monitor here, but that's okay. Well, apologize for being late, but I was obviously at a meeting.
As usual.
I don't dress like this to go to Mickey D's, so. So, another day in paradise.
Is that what you're calling it?
Yeah, well, the city budget, huh?
Yeah, you like that? That's pretty big, don't you think?
Here it is, everybody, and it now has a new additional 20 pages.
Yeah, I heard about that somewhere.
I received a call on the way down here saying it is an additional, well, I'll tell you one thing, it's pretty. It is pretty. And,
it's pretty what? That's the question.
pretty screwed up. It's convoluted and,
Are you there?
yeah, no, I'm reading the section about them readjusting, and I made a comment today at the retirement board meeting, because the retirement figures, you need to be Inspector Clouseau to figure them out, because I posed the question to the city auditor today, and he said it was fully funded. I said, well, why isn't the number found somewhere in its totality on the budget? I said, the city council or the citizens of Fall River should not have to go to 14 different pages in the budget and then add some numbers, subtract other numbers in order to get a figure. The budget should be fairly simple, clear, and concise. As we said on the previous show, when you get a budget that is this difficult to follow, it's being done that way intentionally. It's intentionally created to make it difficult to follow everything. So I don't know what you were talking about initially, and I apologize, but I do have to comment on the city council meeting last night, and the fact again that the corporation council's opinions continue to be used to obstruct the legislative branch, and the legislative branch allows it, even though they know it's only an opinion. It is not the law. When he makes an opinion, which always is favoring the mayor's interpretation of anything, and now I heard that they were talking about going to court. So it's a pretty sad day when the legislative branch isn't allowed to do its job, and the executive branch and judicial branch, we basically want one branch.
Well, and now we know why the city council needs their own lawyer.
Yeah,
Okay, and it's not like Joe Macy and his staff aren't very happy about spending money. They have a mitigation next Thursday. You know what the attorney for the mitigation side said? It's going to be a wonderful day for Boston to spend the day in Boston. So I'll just go to the mitigation instead. They had the opportunity to easily settle the matter without going to Boston, which would save the taxpayer money. But the city is so obtuse, and they have their heads so far up each other's rectums that they can't see that they're spending your money, the taxpayer money. These matters can easily be resolved 9 out of 10 times, like this issue with streetscapes. The city council controls the budget. They control the checkbook. They decided now they don't want to do it, as I was saying earlier before you arrived, Chip. Well, guess what? First and foremost, they were told they shouldn't have done it in the first place. So, again, I told you so. Nah. Well, I figure if the mayor can do it, so can I. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Well,
I mean, especially when a particular elected official got so offended or so upset over the column this weekend, the weekend flush, that he had to unsubscribe from the weekend flush. That's like, I'm going to stamp my feet because you picked on me. Guess what? If you don't have a thick skin in politics, go away. Go away. You already gave yourself a $105,000 a year pay raise, and you didn't care about the people then, and you don't care about them now. You just didn't like the fact that you were, once again, proven wrong.
yeah. And, but that's the problem. You see this transition toward basically taking government completely out of the hands of the people and putting it squarely in the pocket of all the politicians.
Or in their contributors' pockets.
And their contributors' pockets, exactly. As we have seen, we saw the resume of one of the people that was hired. We've also seen, as a matter of fact, we went over Mr. Ponciano's resume, and, look, he had a resume that basically showed the positions he was in, and he technically, he wasn't technically, he was basically unqualified to assume a position as a department head in a city of this size. Yet he got hired. And then again, we see people being hired all the time.
Oh, you mean like Hill Camara?
And
6
now,
years with no job?
yeah, and now it was said after that fiasco that the blame game started.
Right.
The mayor blamed again his new sheriff of Nottingham. Robin Hood Jazel called the sheriff of Nottingham again his arch enemy, Ken Fiola. He blamed him. He said, "Well, they said they wanted me to give him the job. I was told that he should get a job."
Right.
And then they revised that to say, "Oh no, not that job, but they told me they would like to see him get a city job." Well, again, I mean, political naivete. You don't say that. It's bad enough that you do it, and we all know you do it. We've seen some of the hirings. But to come out and say that the political insiders and the power brokers basically tell you who to hire, and if you'd like to see him in a city job, you comply. One of the great things about the police and fire departments is you have to take a competitive exam. So at least you have to get a high enough mark to be on the list to be considered. And now they're, you know, they can choose from the top 3 candidates. So there is some room for politics, but you know, you can't get a 70 on the entrance exam to the police or for a promotion and then be hired over people with 95s. And at least that gives, you know, the average person some control. But I mean, you know, the more and more we see, you know, the truth here, it's pretty obvious that, you know, the government, it is basically a, you know, an ATM machine and basically an employment agency for people who are connected. You know, if you're just the average taxpayer trying to scrape up enough to pay your new and larger fees and taxes coming up in the next fiscal year, you don't get to go down to the mayor's office and say, hey, I'd like to see my cousin get a city job, and the mayor will turn around and say, I don't think so. But for him to say that was said, and obviously they're allegations, but look, we all know how this thing works, and it's frustrating. And you look at this budget and the overestimations, and when we get down to it, we're going to have to do a special on this and break it down, but the fact is that it's pretty obvious that, again, and to its probably greatest degree in a long time, the taxpayers of the city of Fall River are going to take it on the chin again, and big time. Because this budget, with its overestimated revenues and underestimated liabilities, are going to basically leave us with a deficit. Remember when Flanagan had the $8 million deficit, and his excuse was, oh, I didn't know there were the pay raises. Well, you negotiated them and signed the contracts. Oh, I didn't know that the landfill was closing. Oh, I didn't know that the revenue was going to be short from, you know, it was all a bunch of baloney. And it's like this. On page 287, well, it may not be page 287 longer, it says city retirement contributions based on 215 actuary report, adjusted by employee cost plus 6.3 increase. Now, they're not supposed to be doing any adjustments, and I said that at today's board meeting. The fact is that, and I know you have copies of them, CJ.
I have them all.
He's talking about the contribution based on actuarial report. Well, the city also has the fiscal year 2016, 2017, and 2018 PERAC numbers. So why are we using the 2015? The number that was stipulated for 2018, the city has had it for a while. We sent that report when we got it from PERAC over to the city's financial team. And, you know, this stuff is just, you know, it's nonsensical. You know, it's just, you're making an adjustment. Why are you making an adjustment? It's not your job. PERAC tells us how much we owe, we pay. That's the reason that we're supposed to have this unfunded liability paid by 2035. But if you continue to fool around, and how can we be sure of how much you're actually getting? And as I said, I requested that they show me how they're going to get to the number that PERAC sent down. Well, because I am not comfortable with this budget, you know, almost from start to finish.
Well, Chip, and you know, let's be realistic, because I'm so tired of people who watch our show who say they don't watch our show saying, you don't have your information, you're all lying. Well, guess what? See this paper here? It says right here, PERAC.
Yeah.
PERAC. Okay? And the numbers on this for fiscal year 2018, starting July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. Fiscal year 2018, estimated cost of benefits, $35,187,885. Funding schedule, excluding the ERI, is $27,966,632. The ERI is $796,368, with a total appropriation of $28,763,000. I think that's pretty much clear.
Well, yeah, well, it's clear to you, it's clear to me, it's clear to most people who can actually...
Who can read?
But why isn't that reflected in the budget? And then when you see the 24 million rather than 27 million or something like that in the budget, you go, well, where's the money? And then it said, well, we're getting it from the enterprise funds and from part of the SAFER grant, but, you know, then I looked at the budget and I said, well, I don't see the total number. Why didn't they just add them so we could see? So I contacted a very knowledgeable individual, an expert, and I received an email over the weekend which basically said that, you know, each one lists the enterprise funds amounts, but they are not added to the general fund appropriation. They are just funding sources. So we don't know if that figure, if we're supposed to add those stipulations, or if they're already incorporated into the 24 million and are underfunding.
Right.
So, I mean, how can we look at a budget with any confidence that somebody who was a city manager for a city larger than Fall River for many, many years and was a city administrator in this city and, you know, has a Harvard MBA and is one of the, you know, pretty good numbers guy. So how can we budget 24/7 for?
As a matter of fact, the mayor yesterday threw that gentleman under the bus.
Yeah.
He said he had no credibility.
Well, you know, I'll tell you what. I will issue a challenge.
Mary Sahadi against him?
Let's have a financial debate between Mary Sahadi and that individual, because you know something, he has no credibility. He had enough credibility to be a city manager where he was held totally accountable for every penny spent.
Oh, so obviously that wasn't Fall River.
Yeah, no, it was Fort Lauderdale, and you know, he had to make a lot of tough decisions. He took a lot of heat. But, you know, if you talk to previous mayors and people who know about city finances, they will tell you he is one of the, you know, he's got a pretty good resume. I can tell you one thing, they didn't hire him in Fort Lauderdale because his firm testified that they didn't do an audit, did a recreation. And the reality is, how many communities has Mary Sahadi been the manager of until recently? She got politically connected, and now she ended up in Swansea. She's ended up everywhere. But the fact is, look, this budget is, you know, I mean, the overestimations are based on fact. I had a 4-hour meeting and looked at his numbers. He can justify every single number. He knows the exact percentage that we got in excise tax last year up until this point. He can give you what would be considered a conservative and rational increase in the budget, not
But that wouldn't be political.
Not 14%. You know, the mayor says a lot of things like, you know, this car is for everybody in the city, and that Kenny Fiola did it. He's very, very good at throwing everybody under the bus. But the fact is that, look, you know, anytime you want, we'll Spindle City Straight Talk will air it. We'll make it live. Do you really want to sit here at a chair? Have you ever seen the performances of our financial team before the city council, Mr. Mayor?
I watched it last night. It was a joke.
Have you ever seen how many times they changed their numbers? As a matter of fact, this budget is so good that there are 20 new pages that were released today. Every city councilor got 20 new pages. It's been revised. This is the document they gave to the city council. Now they're revising it. It's budget time. Do you think, they didn't say this budget was a work in progress. This budget wasn't given to the city council as a preliminary budget. It was given to them as the FY 2018 municipal budget. And guess what? It's been revised. Numbers are being changed. How many city council meetings did we see our financial team quote numbers and then come back and say they weren't accurate when they were questioned? How many times have we seen them, when questioned on numbers they presented to the city council, say, let me get back to that. Let me recheck this. You know, I mean, if you have confidence in this city's financial acumen, you got some problems. They still haven't told me where the $44,000 that they erroneously put in a city account rather than the employee trust fund came from. And I made that request over 8 months ago.
Yeah, but you know, Chip, here's how we can look at this joke of a financial nitwits, okay? The city received over $250,000 to fix the roof at the Bank Street Armory.
Yep.
Yet yesterday they came back for more money. Yet I haven't seen any work done over at the Bank Street Armory yet. And it would say, oh, this is emergency funding, this is emergency funding. Yeah, it's emergency funding because they don't have any money.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, you know,
And CPA now stands for Citizens Pay It All.
Good one. I like that acronym.
Citizens Pay It All.
Very good. Very good.
Okay? And
like
that's what's
that.
happening. Okay? Everything the mayor doesn't have the money in the budget for, citizens pay it all. Citizens pay it all.
That's
We
it.
pay it all anyhow, but you know what? Let's tax them again with a CPA. They'll pay it all. I'm getting tired of it. And he says, oh, there's no new fees. Of course there's no new fees, because he jacked all of them up.
Yeah.
And the city council, again, had no backbone last night, and they said, oh, but, you know, we can't expect them to pay both higher taxes and higher water and sewer fees. Yet they voted to approve it. They voted to approve it. I love the way they do that. It's such a method of distraction.
Well,
and then you have people go in and saying, oh, you people are so disingenuous. You people can't do this. You know, get your own agendas out. You know what? Maybe you should get your agenda out of the mayor's backside. Okay? I'm tired of hearing it. Don't defend the individuals. Don't defend the individual. Defend the office. And if the office isn't doing the right job, you've got to make sure that the person holding that office is held accountable. That's the way it should be. I'm so tired of this. And just so our viewers know, the actual contribution for the city of Fall River for next fiscal year is $26,278,061 to the retirement board. And they want to knock that down. Bull crap.
yeah. Well, you know, I mean, all you had to do is look at the city council meeting when you listen to Councilor Long, or better known as the mayor's press agent on the council, when he talked about streetscapes because the mayor wants his little street done. And he said, well, I've seen it work in Providence and Boston. Well, Councilor Long, I want you to tell me if it worked in Lowell and Lawrence and Brockton, cities that have the same economic difficulties in Fall River. Streetscapes do not work in financially challenged communities like this. It's all a big scam. So have a good one, stay really angry, and watch the budget hearings. It should be pretty good.
Really? Hey, we'll see you Friday. Have a good one, and remember, get on top of the budget.